Welcome to episode 2 of Salon Talk. Today we indulge in a therapeutic conversation surrounding the journey of grief due to a great loss.
Hello, and thank you all for joining Salon Talk. Salon Talk podcast was created as a platform to bring open dialogue, open conversations about what has transpired in each other's lives, using our experiences and how we've overcome to hopefully encourage another one and inspire someone. So today, I have my beautiful, awe-inspiring, lovely sister, Celeste Myers. Y'all don't even understand how excited I am to have her on this podcast. I could not wait till we can get this scheduled. So, just so I can tell y'all a little bit about Celeste, she's going to introduce herself in a little while, but I just have to let you all know I met her as a customer. I don't even know how many years ago, right?
9.
9 years already?
Yes. I met you when Morgan was months old. Like she was
Wow.
not even 6 months old.
Wow. So let me tell y'all, when she came in, I had just launched my first salon. I had been operating and kind of doing it on my own and just kind of, treading the waters, trying to figure out what salon ownership and, entrepreneurship was like. At the time, I think, okay, so if that was 9 years ago, so I was about 25, 26 years old. So I wasn't that old. I just gotten into my first salon, maybe a year and a half. And so here comes this beautiful woman who comes and sits in my chair. She was very easygoing, but she was so different from all of my other customers. Usually as a service provider, everyone sits in your chair and they are taking that's what we do. We give. But she sat in my chair and her question almost every time she came was, but who's looking out for you? Who's praying for you? Who has your back? And I'm like, who is this? And why she keep asking me this? It was so weird at the time because I just had not been used to anyone looking out for me in that way. And I'm telling y'all, we just clicked from that moment and we have been, connected at the hip. And I'm just super excited, as you can already tell. I'm super excited to have you. So thank you, sister, for accepting the
Thank
call.
you.
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you
really
so
excited
very
about
much.
this because we have been talking about this series,
Yes,
this podcast for a long time.
very long
I'm
time.
excited that you are walking in this season. And thank you for having me. I'm excited to be a guest.
Yes, absolutely. You will definitely be a regular because this has been something that we discussed for years now, something that we talked about bringing to fruition. And I'm thankful for COVID for even, giving the direction. The podcast came about because in the salon, as you all know, I mentioned on the last podcast, I'm a hairstylist. And so because the salon had been closed down and due to COVID and different things, a lot of people were missing those conversations. And so in the salon, we have really edifying conversations. And so many people were messaging me saying that they missed that connection, that camaraderie, that conversation that really left them uplifted and edified. And so I just prayed about it and asked God, how do I move, pivot? And so this is how this came about. So I'm excited. So for those of you who are not familiar with Celeste, I'm gonna let her kind of introduce herself. Yeah, the floor is.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Celeste Myers. I am an educator by profession. This is my 13th year in education. And for 8 of those years, I've been an administrator in some capacity at middle school, at secondary level, so middle school and high school. I love what I do. I love being an educator, but I also consider myself kind of the forever student. I love to learn new things and to research and always thinking about whether I'm going to go back to school or go take some classes. I just love being a student. Um, my husband, Philip, and I have been married for 12 years. We have 2 beautiful girls. Morgan is 9 and Addison is 4. They keep us busy and keep us constantly evolving so that we can be better people, so that we're able to raise just good human beings.
Right.
And we're very active in our church. We belong to a local church in 5th Ward. And I am a Sunday school teacher. I'm a part of the praise team, just really involved and constantly trying to evolve and to learn new things myself so that I'm constantly growing.
Yeah, and see, that's why I love you so much. You are just always looking for progression, but also not just for personal gain, but also for that, so that you can pour out, so that you can be what God has called you to be. And so for you to be able to touch everybody else's life, you've recognized that you have to be a better person for yourself. And so you're constantly, being, making yourself better, gaining that education, gaining that knowledge and different things. That's one of the things that I love about you.
Thank you.
Now, those who tuning in, our topic today is kind of a tough topic. We walked through, of course, she just mentioned that it's been 9 years, which I cannot believe, but 9 years. And so in the course of these 9 years, we have experienced and walked through some very murky waters. We've gone through some really tough times. And so today's topic is smiling through the pain, grieving a great loss. And so we are going to just kind of share our experiences going through the loss that we've encountered, being that it is 2020, COVID. We've been in a pandemic for over 8 months now. And so a lot of loss has taken place, which is why I believe this was placed on my heart to try to try to help someone heal. And that was one of the things that I wanted to talk about. I don't even know if healing, I don't want to say healing isn't the word, but when it's something so deep, do you ever really heal? What does that actually look like?
I don't think you do. I think you learn how to cope.
That's
and
what I was thinking.
Kind of recognizing it's a new normal.
Yeah.
And you're not dwelling in it, but you
Yeah.
learn how to accept it.
Right.
And to kind of accept where you are and what your new normal is, and kind of just find some silver lining in it.
Yeah, I agree, because I know, like, when my mother passed away, it was really tough. And not to say that we didn't go through, like, like I mentioned, very dark times. Like, it was not easy off bat. I mean, I tell anybody and everybody, when my mom passed away, you couldn't tell me she wasn't coming back. Like, I literally, in my mind, somehow, in order for me not to deal with the pain, I suppressed it in a way. And literally, it's funny how the mind can literally trick itself, create its own reality. And you can tell me, for like that first year, she wasn't on an island somewhere. Like, I just literally just hadn't accepted that she was not coming back, right? And so I don't know how you dealt with it, but I know for that first year, and I know it sounds really crazy, but when she passed away, I literally took 2 days off from the salon to get all of her arranged. She passed away. Yeah, she passed away on a Wednesday, took Thursday and Friday off to get the services and everything situated, came back to work, worked, all the way through so that I could have that Friday and that Saturday off for the service. And I came right back to work. So I don't even know if I allowed myself that time to actually process. And mind you, while this is going on, we are, trying to sell her home and trying to, get everything situated and handle the business side of it while I'm running a business and keeping all, marriage and everything together. So how did you even, even a matter of fact, go ahead, if you don't mind, just sharing a little bit about the loss that you've experienced.
Sure. So kind of to talk about the loss of my dad, I kind of have to start with the loss of a really close friend from college. So in 2017, in October, actually, Ebony, my friend from college, she passed away. And while she had sickle cell and kind of dealt with her illness throughout the whole time that I knew her, but her death was unexpected. It wasn't like she was having a crisis. It wasn't, there's a lot going on, but we didn't expect any of that. Right. So that happened. And then a few months later, my dad got sick and kind of went back and forth, didn't know what was going on. And then at the beginning of 2018, he was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer. And so that happened in February, and in May, he passed away. So it was a very short battle that he had with cancer. But during that time, I think for me, there are a lot of experiences that allowed me to really strengthen my relationship with God.
Right.
You talked about like really going through that dark time during such a significant loss for you. And for me, it was the time that he was sick. While it was short, and now looking back, it's very short, but in the moment, it was just go time. I had a lot of work to do, right? Like I needed to make sure that he was okay because we were extremely close. I am a daddy's girl to my core.
Yeah.
And during that time, he needed someone who was just going to listen, right? Someone who was just going to let him be himself and listen to the fears, listen to his frustrations, you know, be that person for him.
Vulnerable. Yeah.
That vulnerable, like he could be himself. And I think about when people are terminally ill, it has to be extremely hard for them because people are kind of projecting onto them kind of how they think that person should respond.
And I know that was one of the things my mom was very angry about. She mentioned, she was like, Christians are so cliche. She would say that all the time. Christians are so cliche. And I'm like, but she would never go into detail. And it's like, what are you saying? But she was really saying that, you know, people would quote, by his stripes you are healed, and you know, no weapon formed shall prosper, and you know, oh, don't worry, cast your cares upon the Lord. And she's like, hello, I know the scripture. That doesn't feed the human side of me. Like the human side of me is scared. Like I'm scared. And so I can totally, it took me a while to comprehend what she was saying. It wasn't really, I don't think, until she passed that I realized it. Yeah, because then people started doing it to me. I don't know if you got the same thing. Then people started doing it to me. I was like, that don't help. That don't help.
And I think people don't, you know, unless you've walked it, you don't know what to say.
Yeah.
You don't know what to do. And you are, I mean, it is true, right? By his stripes we are healed.
Right.
And weapon formed against you will prosper.
Right.
But I think sometimes you need to recognize what somebody needs and have that empathy. To know that might not be what they need right now, right? Right now, I just need to listen and let them talk. So that kind of was what I was for my dad during his journey. We talked all the time, and he was that person for me who would be my listening ear. So it was just a blessing that I could return the favor in his season.
Right.
But his loss, kind of him getting sick after Ebony's passing, like I'm mourning the passing of my friend, and then boom, my dad gets sick. So that was very difficult. It brought a lot of conflicting emotions. Right. But then you kind of have to realize who you are and whose you are, and kind of adapt to whatever is going on. And like I said earlier, like try to find the silver lining in the situation to be able to move on, like to push through, because it is hard. And there are many days where I didn't want to, you know, get out of bed, but I have to, right? Like I have to continue to live and honor my dad instead of kind of just stay stagnant in that moment.
And so that's really that's kind of where I wanted to go next. This is the thing, like, even while, especially for you, like you were mourning double, like that was two very important people to you who you lost. And so the thing is like when we are going through, life is happening. That was like the most difficult part, is like life is happening. And so while people will be sensitive to your need maybe a week or two after or whatever, their life goes on, while we become like kind of stuck in that moment, but at the same time being forced because life is still transpiring. So what tasks were you having to pick back up right following after?
It's heavy, right? Because not only am I a wife, not only am I a mother, Addison was 2.
Yeah.
So there was no, you know, I can sit back and just kind of be. I have to be on because my children need me. I have to be on because my husband needs me. I had to be on because my mom needed me.
Yeah.
Right. Like my mom was mourning the loss of her husband while I was mourning the loss of my dad. That is her husband.
Yeah. And
right?
how long have they been together?
34 years at the time of his passing, almost 35. So it's a significant loss. And I had to be there for her. And my dad kind of had charged me with just, girl, hold it together. You are the strong one. Like, you have to make sure that things happen. So that was in kind of that pressure, healthy pressure, but just pressure was on me. But then going back to work, you know, you go back to work, but then you're also in a position of leadership where people are looking for you. It happened at the end of the school year. So there is the wrap up of the school year and making sure that things are together. And like you said, like, life goes on for the people around you. But I had to find my circle that I could be vulnerable with. And that circle was tight and small because I needed it to be.
Right.
My husband would, like, one weekend, he just said, hey, you're going to a hotel room, like, just go, do what you need to do, cry, scream, whatever it is you need to do so that you can be well. Because I was like you, I kind of kept going.
Yeah.
And then suppressed my own feelings. And that's when things like anxiety can creep in. That's when, you know, I had to find my circle that would allow me to be vulnerable and to be able to talk openly about what I was feeling. And I didn't need to mask because I could just be myself and mourn, because I was going so much that I neglected.
That was one of the things, because, like, you know, I think your dad passed away maybe a year after my mom. And I remember asking you, like, are you okay? And you're like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, are you okay? Because, like, I know what that face is. Like, I know what it's like to smile when you are like broken, like, you know. And as women, strong women, especially women of leadership, we just have to, like, literally just power through. So, you know, being able to have those safe spaces is so important. And like I said, just having someone that would actually, you know, look out for you, who are not looking for the politically correct answer or what people are expecting you to say, but who are like, no, what is the very core of you feeling? How is the very core of you?
Yeah, and I appreciate our friendship so much because even while my dad was sick, you gave me the space to, like, you protected me before he even passed, right? Like, you made sure that I had a safe place where we could just talk. You gave me the space where it was just me and you in the salon, and we could just, like, you allowed me to cry. You allowed me to really talk through frustrations. You allowed me to ask you questions, right? Because you would walk through, like, if you've never had somebody go through cancer, you don't understand what that journey is like. It's not like other terminal illnesses.
No, just feel kind of helpless because all you can do is watch.
Yep. I told my dad once when he was sick, I was like, look, I am not a fighter, but if cancer was a person,
I'm trying to tell you,
we would go toe to toe. Like, I'm telling you, because it is hard. And, you know, for me, my dad was like Superman.
Right.
You know, he was strong, and just to see him so vulnerable. Right. And, you know, not being able to do certain things for himself anymore. Like, that was hard. Yeah. And I became while I understood peace that surpasses all understanding to a whole different level, there were moments where I was frustrated. Like, it wasn't fair.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest maybe I guess misunderstanding is a good word, because while me and you both, we are passionate about the Lord, but to encounter something so devastating, there are moments where you are angry. There are moments where you are frustrated. Like you said, there are moments where you're like, really, God? And you remember we had that conversation where it was like, you know, the old saints love to say you don't question God, but we felt, at least upon the understanding and the revealing that God gave us, was that it was okay to question him, because how else do we gain insight and knowledge from him other than to ask why. We're not challenging his authority as God.
Exactly.
He's still sovereign. He's still God on the throne. But we wanted to know why. Because
And like, what's my lesson in this?
that's
Right?
right. That was
Like,
always our biggest question. What is the lesson?
what do you need me to understand? Right? And I would have those conversations with my dad too, right?
Mhm.
Like, I think sometimes with a loss that's significant, sometimes we don't get to have those conversations with our loved one when they're passing or
Right.
kind of in their journey.
Mhm.
And we had a lot of conversations. I knew that he was okay and that his relationship with God was all right. And like his mind was
Mhm.
strong enough to know like he was going to be okay.
Because he didn't want to do treatment, right?
Yeah. So he didn't want to at first.
Mhm.
Then he did try it for a little while for us, for his family. And then it wasn't working. It wasn't changing the trajectory. So he stopped and he fought for a while and then he passed.
I think that's the toughest part of it. I know for my mom, when she told us that she had cancer, um, wow, one thing I can appreciate about your dad, he was very open and honest about it. We got tidbits along the way, so we never knew that she was terminal, and we never knew that like she was passing. Like we, because we didn't get full information about it, we were pressuring her to get treatment. You remember I had that conversation with you because it was difficult to hear when your loved one is saying, I don't want treatment. But it's so easy for the person who doesn't have cancer to say, well, you're giving up. But in actuality, they've accepted, and I don't want to make it seem like they've accepted death, but they've accepted what God has laid upon them, what God has allowed in their lives. And they're just like, my mom's biggest thing was, if they're telling me I have 13 months to live, I don't want to spend my 13 months in the hospital. I want to live. I want to live. I don't want to live my life. It's not living if I'm just stuck to an IV. But I think we talked, we were so demanding, like, Mom, you gotta fight, not comprehending that it took more strength to say, I don't want the treatments. I want to live the rest of my days enjoying life with my family, however many those that may be. You know what I'm saying? And so that's one thing that I always try to tell anyone who's going through that. Like, if the person decides they don't want the treatment, whether you have full knowledge of what they're going through or not, it is definitely their decision. And it doesn't really mean that they're giving up. It just means that they're exercising their right. And it takes a lot of strength to say, I'm just going to live the rest of my days happy, how
Yes.
I choose, because it's already like cancer is robbing them of something they have no control over. So they're like, I'm going to take control of this and do it my way. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
I'm gonna take my power back.
I'm going to take my power back. Yeah.
Because some of it, they feel so helpless and powerless.
Mm-hmm.
That is a way for them to have some of their control, but
Mm-hmm.
also, for my dad, it was wanting to make sure that we would be okay,
Yeah.
right? And not, he didn't want to suffer. He didn't want to, be hooked up to machines and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And with stomach cancer, I mean, even eating becomes a chore.
Right.
So he was able to prepare us. And my dad wasn't someone who just prepared us once he got sick. Like, I grew up my whole life knowing Celeste, dad ain't gonna be here forever. So you're gonna have to come learn how to cook this, learn how to do this. Come on, we're gonna talk. And, I knew what he wanted and knew all these things far beyond, or far before he even got sick. So, I mean, that I think is a way for him to have some of the control.
Yeah.
I mean, he was such a strong man and strong-willed
Yeah.
and prideful. So that was a way for him to kind of say, like, no, I'm going to enjoy the time that I do have.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep it going.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I tell people I don't have a whole lot of regrets in life, but the way her last year, the way my mother's journey went that last year, while we made wonderful memories, I really wish we had not pushed our desire on her. Because I think about it like, yeah, we spent a lot of time in the hospital, and the end result was still death. And that sounds very morbid, but at the end, the result was still death. And what I learned, I'm not sure about you, but what I learned most about that was that life is fleeting. And so we really, when they, not to be cliche, but when they talk about like sunrise and sunset, that dash in between is what really matters or whatever, how you spend that dash, that's what really matters. It's like, that is legit, like the truth. Like, however you live is the way you should live. Like, however you feel about it, that not saying we should just live, fancy free or whatever, but, I really wish we hadn't pushed our desires on her.
With the little information you did have,
Yeah,
her love for her was like, no, but I need you to push. I need you to fight. Like, if there's any hope that, that you can beat this,
right.
like, I need you to put in that effort.
And even it's difficult too, because like for you, like you said, your dad was a fighter. Like, my mom was very strong-willed. And so we didn't comprehend this whole, I'm good, I'm not going to take any treatment. We just like, what is the color part? All my life I had to fight. Like, your whole life you spent, fighting and powering through and, pushing the envelope. Like, nobody set a boundary that she didn't say, that ain't for me, and that's where I learned mine from. Don't put me in a box, because I'm gonna jump out. So I learned that from her. So we couldn't comprehend the whole idea of her not taking these treatments, but like, we didn't have full disclosure of the severity of her cancer. But I know at one point the doctors was like, we've never seen a cancer this aggressive. Like, she would take treatments, and the next day it was like she didn't have any chemo at all, because her cells were they were continuously doubling up. So I just really wish, I always tell anybody, let them handle it the way that they feel. Because again, I hate to sound morbid again, because of course this episode is surrounding death, but their end is near. Possibly their end is near. And so let them, who are we to push our way of thinking about it or going about it, or the way that we will go about it? Who are we to push that off on them? Looking back, I think that was kind of selfish of us.
We're children.
It was mama. Yeah, it was mama. We didn't know, but that's just something that we've always felt about it.
I think I can only speak from my experience, right? Mm-hmm. But I would ask a lot of questions. I would ask him, so how are you feeling? Like, not like physically, but like, how do you feel? Like, what is going through your head? Just so that we could talk, because we always had these really deep conversations.
Right.
But just trying to see, like, what is it that he's thinking, so that I was preparing myself for what was to come. Mm-hmm. And then trying to understand from that mindset, like, why he was making some of the decisions that he was making. And I had to respect it, right? While I definitely wanted the outcome to be different, I wish he was still here. Mm-hmm. I just had to accept kind of where he was and allow him to make decisions that were what he felt like were the best for him.
Right.
When you're in the moment and you're seeing your loved one struggling, you do realize that they have that right, and it's their life.
It's their life.
And even though that's not the outcome you want, or that's not the decision you want, you have to kind of respect that and allow them to have that control.
Right. So that's let's kind of switch gears a little bit. And you may mention while it wasn't the outcome that you desired. And so, a lot of times, and I've seen this multiple times, especially just being in the church, I've seen a lot of people turn away from God because they did not receive the outcome that they desired. And so, we sometimes get that misinterpretation of the scripture that says, ask what you will and it shall be given. And so we believe that, and it says in faith, just speak to the mountain and it'll be moved. And so we get those scriptures and we tend to tweak them to our personal journey and to what we're feeling in that moment. Even if we ask him, it doesn't mean that we're going to always receive the result that we desire. And so how did you cope with that? How did, when that happened, like I said, people were always questioning. They were thinking that my relationship with him would change if my mother didn't live. But I'm like, I understand God is still God. He's sovereign. If he said, come on home, come on home. So how did you feel in that moment?
Okay, so I'm going to get a little cliche. So my mother-in-law, Phyllis' mom, she always says, the joy of the Lord is your strength. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And I didn't really understand it, right? Like it's a scripture that we take and we kind of just use.
Right.
I didn't understand it. And she has always said that repeatedly. But I remember being at the gravesite and my childhood friend, Shannon, she came up to me and she asked me, like how I was doing. And I was vulnerable with her and just told her like, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And she repeated that the joy of the Lord is your strength. Like, don't forget the joy of the Lord is your strength. And then that was, small moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that is, I think, what I drew on.
Yeah.
Right. Like the joy of the Lord is my strength.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from Nehemiah 8:10, where Nehemiah is talking to the Israelites, and they are basically mourning over the fact that they have strayed away.
Right.
And that God is, they're kind of mourning their own sin.
Yeah.
And Nehemiah is telling them, like, this is a brand new day. You need to feast and enjoy the fact that you were kind of turned and you are moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And understand that this is not a time for mourning, but it's a time to draw on the strength of the Lord,
mm-hmm.
right?
And almost like recalibrate.
Yes. So for me, and this is hindsight, right? Like this isn't me back in 2018.
Right.
But understanding that the joy of the Lord is my strength, like being able to recognize that every prayer my dad had for his passing was true.
Mm-hmm.
He was surrounded by family. He basically went to sleep and just that next morning he didn't wake up and he peacefully went to be home with the Lord. Like every desire that he had was true. So I got to see God's hand in every bit of it.
Yeah.
And I recognized it. I think even back in 2018, like I could see that God was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So there was peace. I could understand kind of, it all made sense, if that's making sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that I could draw on God. I could draw strength from, somebody would say something. I would receive a card from somebody.
That was the most powerful part.
Yes.
Like in your most vulnerable moment, something or someone came through, right?
And the fact that like, because we talked about like people move on.
Mm-hmm.
They you're in their mind for about 2 weeks, maybe
2 weeks.
Kind of like until the service is over and then they expect you to be okay.
Yeah.
But I would receive calls randomly. I would, family would reach out, and I remember feeling very alone sometimes. And then in those moments that I felt alone, somebody would do something, or a song would come on the radio, or, it sounds crazy, but like I would hear my dad's voice in my ear telling me, pick your head up. You're going to be all right, sugar. Like something that would let me know that God was still in control and he still cared about me.
Right.
Right. Like, and that for me just allowed allowed me to never really be angry at him, because I felt so, like when we talk about God being a loving God, it's in those moments that when we are going through our lowest times that he shows himself to be just loving, and like you feel him wrapping you in his arms. That for me is just, it was enough.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning into episode 2. Tune in to episode 3 as my guest Celeste Myris and I discuss the low points of grief and the triumph on the other side.